Our podcast is about connecting with people who make up our schools, our students, professors, and staff. Welcome to the IC Connects podcast. Our guest today created and launched an interactive video game called Quatre, apparts, confinement, which explores the effects of confinement.
Hi, I'm Yannick Rochat. I'm a scientific advisor at the College of Humanities here at EPFL. I'm also a co-founder of the UNIL Game Lab, which is a study group on video games, which we founded at the University of Lausanne.
Hi, I'm Andrew Dobis, and I just finished my bachelor's degree in computer science here at EPFL.
So Yannick, tell us more about the game and how you came up with the idea.
So the idea came from the Initiative for Media Innovation, which is a group of different media who are thinking about the future of news. And Munir Krishan from the initiative and Gaël Uriman from Swiss newspaper Le Temps gathered and at the beginning of the confinement. And they were thinking about how are we going to tell stories different. And so they were thinking about, can we talk about it differently? And maybe can we have like an artifact that we can go back to in the future to help us, remind us about these weird times. And in order to think about this period and think about what we lived when we were in quarantine, they thought about a game. They were like, okay, we could have something interactive to help people go back to these times and relive this period, which is not a very funny thing. But since we are in a scientific and news context, this was an interesting constraint and an interesting thing to create. So that's how the project was launched. Paul Ronga from Le Temps and me were hired to deal with the project management, and we hired one student from UNIL, Sarah Jones, one student from EPFL, Andrew, and one alumni from the HEAD, which is an art school in Geneva. And we spent the summer doing a second confinement, working with the distance on this project. So we thought about how we could tell stories about the confinements, and that at the same time be able to launch this game in August.
Andrew, what was your role in the project?
So my role was mostly programming. Like I did essentially everything from creating the initial project, like organizing the collaboration system we were using, and everything that had to do with programming. So like structuring the whole project from scratch.
What was your creation process for the narrative of the game?
So we needed 2 months and a half to create the game. We were 5 people working on it. We started creating the different narrative arcs in May. And we were thinking about, okay, so what's the confinement right now? What was it a few weeks ago? And how is it going to end? And what about a potential second wave? And so we had to create a game in the middle of the confinement, which would maybe not interest anybody because these are scary times. So we had all these difficulties to deal with, and we gathered all we could about this time. So how do people feel? What do people talk about? How do people survive in the flats? And especially what are the things we can do about the confinement, and what can we do against the COVID? And all these anecdotes and facts that we had, we gathered them into 4 narrative arcs. So we have a grandmother, we have a mother of 2 who is alone at home with them. We have a student and an independent worker who is out of job. And through these 4 different characters, we were able to deal with a lot of the things which happened to all of us. And especially, we've had very nice feedbacks about how to live the lives of others because it was like there were two categories: people who were bored and people who were living in very stressful environment. We wanted to be able for people to live the lives of the others, but also to feel it. And that's also why we inserted some kind of mini games. So you kind of play, but you also live this, I don't know how to say it, this kind of boredom of these times. The weirdness of going to the supermarkets and having some of the places being empty. And there is the fact of playing it right now, but there is also the fact of playing it in a few months or years. Or you can think about like in 5 or 10 years, playing this with your children to help them understand what it was to live in those times. The experience is still short, so it's really easy to share it and to have people play it. And we hope people are going to feel what it was to live during this spring in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm. Was there a particular age group you were targeting?
We don't all agree on that. Le Temps wanted to aim at a younger audience, so through a game, through something interactive, and especially we aimed at mobile players. So through all these decisions, the goal was to touch a younger audience. But on my side, I also thought that it would be interesting to have older people playing this game, especially since many games are difficult to deal with if you're not used to games, and this one is really easy to manipulate. We made a lot of work on the buttons, the interactivity, the user interface, in order for it to be as accessible as possible. So I would really love for all the players to be able to play our games.
So Andrew, what's your favorite part of the game?
One thing I really enjoy about this game is the sort of, I'd say, variety of experiences you can get out of it. Like, there's one of the mini games where we're supposed to, I think, like file our taxes or something, like pay just a bunch of overdue fines, and it's just really overwhelming, and a lot of stuff is coming down like constantly. And I think that sort of, I really like that part because I think it really gives an idea of how we can easily get overwhelmed because we sort of lose track of time. And so we completely lose track of time and we have no notion of what day it is.
And in terms of programming, how did your studies help you when creating this video game?
Well, in my studies, at least in a bachelor's degree in computer science, we had a lot of opportunity to sort of create a lot of projects from scratch. Well, at least in the last year, most of our projects are sort of very open, and it's like, okay, here's a topic, now do something around this topic rather than follow these steps. I think our video game has roughly around like 50 different files that are each like 600 lines of code. So that adds up over time. And so you end up needing this really sort of tight structure to make your game work. And my studies really helped me sort of gaining the confidence I needed to sort of trust my own structuring and knowing that it's going to work in the long term because it has in the past. And also it helped since our game is web-based, that all the computer networking classes and database management, all that stuff, that actually really helped, especially towards the end where we had to do all the players, like collecting player statistics and stuff like that.
What do you have in store for the future of your video game?
So the game is open source. So we would love other media in other languages or other countries to take it, make it their own, and translate it and release it in their own countries. For the time being, we are thinking about translating it in English and German. We have some volunteers to help us with the translation. We also have to to create a system to be able to change languages. So either we release the game separately, or we just have one game with different languages. My dream right now would be to have it in all the languages in Switzerland, since you have a lot of hints at the fact that it's happening in Switzerland. We really love this experience, and we want more people to being able to play it. So we need to gather together soon and think about the future.
What is the link between video games and science?
There are many links, in fact, between them. At first, if we take the origin of video games, it might be Space War in 62 or Tennis for Two in 58. These games were created in universities. And for a long time, the only place where you could play video games were universities, because they had the computers, and a lot of people were enjoying these and creating games. And then later, it went to the arcades, it entered the different homes. But still at this moment, you have these many links, because you use games to introduce to programming. In games, you have a lot of different, you have mathematics, but you also have the art of storytelling, you have the art of drawing. And video games are really borrowing from all the possible disciplines in science. And on the other side, they've been used a lot to teach history, to teach science, to teach physics. And even more recently, we've been using games to discover new planets or new ways to assemble atoms and proteins. So the links are not straightforward, but they are everywhere at any time. You can even think about the way IT and computing developed, which was often linked to the innovation in video games. May it be 3D design or network protocols. So yeah, it's difficult to have a single link, but I think these stories are very bounded together.
And I believe you've been teaching 2 SHS courses on video games?
Exactly. I'm teaching 2 courses, one which is called Video Games and Society. It's about the links between video games and social sciences. So what's the impact of games on the people, on our society, and how can we better understand the crowds, our own civilization through game technologies. But maybe the second course has a stronger link to this project. It's a course called Video Game and Gamification. And the goal of this course was to study how games can introduce to some scientific facts or some serious facts. Sometimes you call this kind of games serious games. And in this course, the students, and Andrew was one of them, the students had to create games, and the only constraint was that you have to take some scientific knowledge and make it into a game. So we had a fighting game between elements of the periodic table. We had a platform game with a Schrödinger cat, which was able to pass through the walls. We had all different very funny games which were created. And the goal was that the student think about how the game is able to communicate such things. And the question behind that was, what are games able to do? This exercise would be, we could do it with films, with images, with storytelling. And in this case, it was interesting to talk with the students about that. what are the games made of, and what are they able to do?
Andrew, how was this experience for you? This course, and as Yannick just described.
Well, it was honestly one of my favorite courses this semester, because I think it was different from everything else we had. Because usually SHS courses are kind of I don't know, they're kind of not really taken seriously because they don't. They're kind of forced upon us, but this one was honestly felt like it was like directly related to what we were all interested in, and everyone who took the class was actively interested in this topic. So it was a sort of a breath of fresh air compared to all the other extremely technical courses. And also this one was very much based on sort of looking at video games from a different point of view. And honestly a very big fan of video games in general. So it was nice to see how video games can be used for more as a more educational medium rather than just fun for fun's sake. I honestly think it was a very refreshing course, say.
Yeah, just to I need to say a remark here, but Andrew, the grades have been given to the Service Academic already. So if you want to say bad things about the course, you can.
Yeah, no, I know. I've received my grade, and it's one of the reasons why I'm not saying bad things about the course. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
A very weird thing was that there were a lot of students in a very small room at the beginning of the semester, and it was difficult to have a discussion. And when the course moved online, then suddenly it exploded. People were raising hands on Zoom. They were talking on the chat. We opened a Discord server to help the students deal with the project. And when the course was running, there were comments everywhere, in the private rooms, in the public rooms. And moving online was great. We had these different discussions with all the groups. And I think we also, as teachers, learned a lot. And that's why all the courses need to be open to discussion, either to see your own limits, but also to learn stuff from younger generations.
I heard you researched about the presence of video games at the EPFL as teaching tools. For instance, Unity is used by a couple of researchers. Can you tell us more about this?
We already had seen that when we were at the University of Lausanne. We had people studying games and using game technologies for their own research. And when I moved 2 years ago to move back, in fact, to EPFL, then I realized that we had game technologies more or less everywhere. So I, with two students in IC, Hugo Hubert and Lucas Strauss, we organized an event called Games on Campus, and we had 30 or 40 guests, people from all the campus who would come and talk about how they use game technologies or how they study games. And the idea is that we have so much expertise, so many people in robotics, at the Immersive Lab, but also at ENAC, people doing simulation, plane or urban simulation and using game technologies. People who need to talk, people who need to get in touch and know what the others are doing, and maybe gather and think about how we can scale a bit this kind of initiatives and collaborate. And so we were organizing this in March, and we were very unlucky. Maybe 2 weeks earlier it would have happened, but it's been delayed. I think after this event will happen, I will be more able to answer this question. How are people using game technologies on the campus? Because we've seen a lot of people doing that, and now we want to hear them, and we want to record them, and we want to share the stories. We want everybody to know. And even some of the startup companies on the campus are using games. Maybe the most famous one being MindMaze. who hire game designers for their own projects. So this event, Games on Campus, will happen, we hope, in October or November, and it's going to be a few hours every week. It's going to be organized remotely. But after that, I will be more able to answer this question. We want to map all these initiatives and maybe have a kind of a register of who's doing what with game technologies.
Going back to your video game, what's your takeaway from this experience?
I'm proud of the fact that we reached the end and we were able to deliver a game in the end, because I've been playing video games for my whole life. I've been studying them for years, thinking about them for more years. So I was fascinated by the objects. I'm a mathematician, and I turned to game studies because it kind of gathers everything into a single discipline. And being able to go to the other side in some way and participate in the creation of a game. So I know the theory. I know the theory about crunch. I know the theory about how difficult it is to communicate and to have these different expertises. And being part of such an experience, having to create this game, collaborate, everybody was at different levels. Paul, for example, has created a lot of games, so he had much more experience. And I know some of the theory about game design, and Matthias was a great graphic author, and Sarah was able to create great dialogues, and Andrew was taking a lot of initiative and building this strong framework we're happy to work with. And it was very fascinating, also because I'm interested in social sciences, to see these dynamics taking place, and how people work together, what works, what doesn't work. So I was very happy to create kind of my first game, co-create, but I was very happy to be able to observe that from the inside. I learned a lot watching how people interact and worked. It's been a great life lesson for me.
I guess I loved every moment of it, even the stressful parts. And looking back, it was honestly a great experience, and learned a lot, mostly about teamwork and communication. And as for, I guess, a takeaway, experience-wise, it was great to be able to work with such a variety of people from a bunch of different sort of fields. And I think that it was a good practice as to how to communicate between the different fields that we have all worked in. So honestly, it was great.